one thing I will tell you before I even get started is the stuff you hear on social media is not real, right? Like, no duh, but you see those guys with the Bugattis and they're like, you want to have all this from investing in real estate? That's not real. Those guys, either they've been doing it for a ton of time and they invest in other things as well, or they started with some sort of large fund to work with, family money or whatever the case is, or they're just trying to sell you a course. That's usually what it is. They're trying to sell you some $20,000 course to teach you how to invest with no money. Uh, I can save you the 20 grand and tell you investing with no money is just borrowing other people's money. That's all it is. So I don't charge anything for this. This is like my guilty pleasure. I love real estate investing. That's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I love selling real estate too, but this is this is late at night when I can't sleep. I'm on my computer looking for deals. It's like I do this versus playing video games. It's what I do. So um let's get into it. So this one is, as you all know, we have a different topic every month, but this one is intro into investing in real estate. So what is Grid? Grid is a global real estate investor community built for investors by investors. We're not gurus. We're a group of real people doing real deals. I had to qualify for Grid. They vet you to make sure you've done enough deals. They make sure like you don't have any negative impacts on your history with investing. And that's how they set up their local memberships. There are other grids locally, but there's a ton of them all over the country and all over the world. Uh, our mission is to connect, learn from, and collaborate with like-minded people interested in building wealth and creating impact through real estate. We welcome investors of all experience levels. We're lifelong learners and believe everyone has value to share. I only started investing in real estate 7 years ago, and uh, there's people that'll get a lot further in a year or two. Some people that take a lot longer than it took me to get where I'm at. I think everyone has something to share. Any investor meetup I've ever been to, those are the most open people. They'll share everything with you because they're not afraid. Like they're collaborators. That's what good investors are. Grid is all over the place. It's grown even since I've been a Grid chapter leader for the last year and a half or 2 years, and it keeps growing. It's really good. Follow their Facebook groups, follow their meetup groups, follow all their social media because they send out deals in there. They interact with you. If you're, coming to local Grid chapters, it's a good way to find deals in other areas of the country. So our major beliefs are your net worth is equal to your network, and that's in any industry, really. I mean, especially, like I said, I'm a real estate agent. My sphere of influence is my network, and those are the people that I sell real estate to. So it's the same with investing. I don't own any properties by myself. All of the investments I have are with partners. Even my house I own with my wife, so I don't own anything by myself, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't syndicate, but I do have one or two, sometimes even three partners on each building, and they're friends. They're not people that I didn't know before. They're people I've known for years that I know they're of good character, and they're of the same mindset I am. Um, Investing in yourself plus your people always generates a great return. Leadership matters. Knowledge, connections, and resources are best found at the local level. Freedom of finances, time, and choices of our ultimate purpose. And together we can accomplish more than we can alone. And the freedom part is big because that's what they all sell, right? They're all telling you if you want to if you don't want to work ever again, if you want to retire in 5 years, invest in real estate. That couldn't be further from the truth. Investing in real estate is a job and it's a career choice. Is there a point where you can get that your real estate investments make you more than your day job and you could do real estate investing full time? Absolutely. But that's a job. Even if it's just managing your property managers, it's a job and it requires a good operator. So don't ever fall for you're going to buy some properties and it's going to pay your bills. You never have to work again. That's not reality. right? If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So grit is helping our communities build wealth and legacy through real estate and is at the core of everything we do. Grit stands for grow your database, relationships offer the highest returns, invest in people and assets, and develop leadership and expertise. Please feel free to go on gritinvestor.com. They have, you know, things you can do there. Just me, a little bit about me. I mean, we kind of shared a bit, but who am I? I'm Will Holder. I run the William Holder Realty Team. I'm also a real estate investor. I run this group because, like I said, real estate investing is my hobby and my passion. And from this group, I've my first meeting I did prior to COVID, and then took a long break and came back to it. One of the people that was at that first meeting, since then, I helped him do a few flips, and now we're investing together. And we've grown to like and trust each other because he operates the same way I do. We don't try to screw anybody over. He does his deals right. He's very smart. Him and his son are very like-minded to me, and that's the way I see this group going. I encourage people to come and to get to know each other and find deals. And people that come here will email me for advice. I'm happy to give advice. Like I don't need to make anything off of this, but I do, you know. Um, and again, what do you want to accomplish? Eventually, hopefully help you do deals or get started, or at some point do deals with you, you know. All right, so this is just a little intro. Tell us about a little bit about yourself. So we'll start in the room. So get started.
I said TJ, but my real name's Antonio.
Okay.
I should start using that more. I've been going by TJ for 27 years. So,
Okay.
but my real name is Antonio. I am trying to get my real estate license. I'm waiting for the background check to come back. That comes back, I can take it. And I do want to do that.
Ese es eso.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thinking about fixing it up, but I don't know if that's such a good idea now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would like to make that my first property and get into the real estate space and start coming to as many events as I can and
Yeah.
meet as many people. And my goal is to network, like you were kind of saying, like it's not about dollar value, it's about just value of life, being happy.
Yeah.
This does get me excited. So
Yeah. And don't take anything I'm saying to be I'm trying to scare you. I am a little bit, but I also like to live in reality, and I don't want anyone that doesn't have the stomach for this to do it. I've seen a lot of people like that have come to me and said they wanted to invest, and after I had a conversation with them, I'm like, you're not ready for this. Like, you don't have enough funds saved. It's a lot harder than you think it is. And then they'll call me a year later because they're stuck in a deal they can't get out of because if they went to, hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, hi, Will. Nice to meet you. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So I've and they've called me a year later. That happened a lot where I'll get a call and they're like, "Well, this agent sold me this property and I can't sell it now." And I'm like, "What did you pay for it?" And we start going through the margins, and I'm like, "Why did you even buy this?" And uh, I hate that because I live that and it makes me feel terrible knowing someone else is living that. So I don't want people to get into this if you're not gonna have the stomach for it, right? So I give a little bit of a scare tactic in terms of like being just bluntly honest about how hard this can be. But I want you to do it. I just want you to be prepared for the worst. All right. So don't let this scare you off too much. So
Yeah, my name is marketing for the last 20 years, and I always wanted to invest, but never started. So last year I got my license, and I've been just looking to learn more and work with my clients and also invest for personally.
awesome.
So yeah, wherever I get opportunities, I guess,
Awesome.
and maybe network with you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My name's Casey Ross. I have my license for 3 years now. Want to invest in property. Been kind of looking for another one for a while. I don't know. I was talking about getting a culture.
Awesome.
Hi, Christina. It's my first time at this meeting, but I'm just being supportive of Casey, and I'm interested in also like being an active like partner in that thing. Journey. Yeah, we have the one property, but like Casey mainly does everything with it. But if you help,
Yeah.
we have three kids, and I still work full time, so it's like a lot. But I mean, obviously, but we're trying to get like another property or something.
Awesome. How old are your kids?
5, 4, 2.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah, have that. Me at least.
Yeah. For anyone, believe me. Yeah. 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 I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, so yeah, we don't sleep much. You know? And Kim, you wanted to share your story?
Okay, so I'm originally out of Galveston, Texas. I reside in Delaware right now, Wilmington, Delaware. I am a newbie. My buy box is to create a family legacy and to also become financially independent.
All
So
right,
I
so
also have a nonprofit that's into affordable
oh shit.
housing, building affordable housing. So basically, the nonprofit, and also
Mhm.
this year, one of our projects is to launch a training program working with the Appraisal Foundation to develop a program to train women to go off into being appraisers. And that's
Got it.
to begin starting off and becoming to the highest level of certification to become an appraiser. So
Awesome.
my asset class I prefer is single family homes and townhomes.
Hmm.
And let me see, and I'm trying to learn this as much as I can from networking as much as I can because it seems like
Okay.
here in Wilmington,
Yeah.
like mentors and
Yeah.
everything, yeah, that's real limited. So everyone tells you network, network, network,
Right.
find mentors, but yeah, that's really in short supply.
I'm not gonna be
So
able to
unfortunately, like
resale.
yourself, a lot of people
Yeah.
have to go off on their own.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Uh, yeah, Kim's great. That was a lot, and thank you for sharing that, Kim.
Mhm.
So, um, it, just important legal stuff. Like everything I'm sharing with you guys is most of it's general knowledge. A lot of it's just my personal experiences. Please don't sue me if something goes wrong. That's all it says. Like I'm trying to give you free information and hopefully it helps you. I do record this and I post it on the grid, social and everything. So your voice might be heard on those things. So, you know, don't say anything too crazy. Um, all right, so let's get into it. So I want you guys to really do think of real estate like a game, and specifically the game of Monopoly. Real estate investing is the game of Monopoly. If you've been to some of our higher level classes where I had a guy here who has 700 units, it's all about leveling up, right? The tax code is made to help you level up in real estate. And it's going to stay that way because all of the senators have real estate, right? So why would they change the rules? It's built for them, right? Like 1031 exchanges, that's built for them. You know, it's built for the wealthy. When you buy, if you read any real estate investor starter book, it's like buy one single family, buy another single family, buy a duplex, clump them, sell them, buy a 10 unit, 1031 exchange the money. So when you sell them, you can do what's called a 1031 exchange, which is a tax deferred vehicle. You're basically all of the money you get from that sale, you don't have to pay capital gains with there's plenty of rules. Like you have to find another property in 45 days. You have to close on it within 6 months. The money doesn't come to you; it goes to like intermediary, and then gets used for the closing. There's plenty of rules because the IRS doesn't want you ever touching that money, but they're giving you the benefit of not paying taxes because you're leveling up. You're selling the smaller stuff to starter investors, and you're leveling up to bigger stuff, and you're providing housing for more people. So that's why they want you to keep doing that. And if you get a really, really, really high level, you can go to the point where let's say you get to a point where you've done tax depreciations or forced depreciations on all these properties and you want to sell it, then you can put them in a trust and your family can inherit them and then just never pay taxes on it. So the game is built for that. It's monopoly. You're always trading up. You don't have to. You could buy 10 single families and sit on them forever. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just what fits for you, right? So things you need to know, obviously you need to take this seriously. It's a lot of money we're playing with. Even if you're just using a small down payment, house is worth a lot of money. You can get foreclosed on. You can have squatters. You can have uh, terrible contractors, terrible lawyers. Like things happen, so take it very seriously. Have fun, but take it seriously. I have fun with most of my investors are my friends. You know, most of the guys I invest with. You know, for buying properties in Pittsburgh, we're planning a day trip. We'll stop, get lunch, have beers on the way back, like after we drive home, and you know, we have fun out of it. But we take it very seriously. Um, you know, understand that you're running a business. I look at every individual property as a business. It's each one is its own entity. And what is that profiting me? What am I losing? How is that business being run? If you're not operating your businesses individually at the highest level, your overall business won't run well and you'll fail. Right? Understand there are rules and levels that allow you to play and ultimately win, and that's the 1031 is one of those I mentioned. So, how do you win? You win by getting your passive income to exceed your household income expenses, household expenses. This takes a lot longer than a lot of people are comfortable with, and that's the truth, right? Like I said, you go on uh, Instagram and some guru with 7 Bugattis trying to tell you that you can do this in 5 years, and you just can't. Like it's not going to happen. You have to be realistic. You have to know what your expenses are and how long it's going to take you there, and how many doors is it going to take to get you there, and how long it's going to take you for you to get those doors. The one word entrepreneurial people hate hearing is yet, but it's the best word. Like I don't have it yet. I'll get there. I don't need to rush it, right? If you're rushing, you're going to make mistakes. So take your time, have a plan, be realistic. Don't think I'm going to retire in a year. Like one of the agents on my team, I love him. He's a great guy, but I met him as an investor. He bought a property and he's like, I'm going to do this. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to do this. I'm like, you're doing what? And he quit his job and he was like, I'm going to be a real estate investor. I'm like, where are you getting the money? And he's like, I'll figure it out. And then he ended up becoming an agent. Now he's on my team because he needed money to invest. Don't do that. Like, stay in your day job. You need your day job. You need whatever that is. If that becomes getting into real estate full time, do that. Right. But don't try to assume that the money you're going to make from real estate investing is going to supplement your life right away. It's not. Right. If you look at it like a 401k, it takes a long time to build that up. Right. You can't just have money swept from your paycheck for 5 years and then live off that forever. It doesn't work that way, right? So there are the 7 levels of wealth, and I like to show this. Obviously, level 1 is mindset and energy. I remind people you can have energy at any age. I have agents that join my team. I just had an agent join my team. I believe she's like 63. She's got more energy than a lot of people I've ever met in my life. Energy is a mindset thing. It's not an age thing. You know, Colonel Sanders made his first million at 60. Warren Buffett made 95% of his wealth after 65. Like these are just realities. Like people think, you know, it's over if you get too old and it's not done. No, you're just getting started. So you can have mindset and energy at any age. I wish I started at 18. I didn't. I started at 29. You know, I still had the energy for it, right? So level 2 is sales and marketing. As you grow your real estate business, you're growing a sales and marketing business. I think most businesses become a sales and marketing business eventually, right? Like if you're a contracting company, eventually it's all about how many clicks can you get to get jobs, right? If you're a real estate company, it's how many clicks can you get to get leads for people to buy and sell houses. That's what most businesses become. That's what a real estate investment business is. Now, it doesn't have to be you're running ads on TV or you're sending out thousands of mailers. It could simply be driving around a neighborhood and looking for houses that look like they're run down and walking up and knocking on the door and introducing yourself and becoming a known presence in the community. That's sales and marketing, right? Like, because eventually people are going to know you, like you, and trust you, and they're going to call you because they do need to sell this house, right? I was at a property today on East Thompson Ave. It's in Springfield, right by the BJ's, like right there. And that property, I've driven by it a million times, and there's been literally vines growing over it. The single family house, and I've sent letters to it. I've tried to call, never anything. And I just saw it got listed, and it was an estate. Person passed away a long, long time ago, and there was big fights over this estate. And now it's listed as a bank-owned property. But I've been trying to get a hold of that person forever. I could have got it. I didn't. Is what it is, you know. Um, the next level is business ownership. Once you start buying properties, again, you're a business owner. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. I need to get some water. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice today. Hey, man, it's bumping over there. No? Yeah, I got some extra. If they want to come learn about real estate, let me know. It's like backed over there.
A lot of ideas.
It's about like planning and no Swath. It's about they're doing the 10-year plan for Swarthmore. People like to have their opinions about Swarthmore. So yeah, I know. My neighbor's over there. So uh no, she asked me to come and like do a little thing, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. Like, no, thank you. Mhm. Yeah, the price, right? Because the price is just too high at that point. As nowadays, pre-COVID, you could get good deals on the market. Unlisted, no, even listed stuff. Like prior to 2020, I most of the stuff I bought was on the MLS, was on the market because there weren't. What happened with COVID was regular owner occupants, uh, because there was such limited inventory, started going after fixer uppers. So, as an investor, you can't compete with that because they don't need a spread. They don't need any margins. They don't need meat on the bone. They just want a house to live in, which is fair. But I can't compete with that. So that's why it got really, really hard. And then you got investors that started to like work off really thin margins. Like they didn't need to make a lot of money because they're doing the work themselves or they're doing it at scale. And that made it hard for your average, investor coming up. So it was more of um, the market affected what you could find that was listed, right? Um, there's still deals out there, and that house might end up being a deal because there's ways to make that work. Like the house is on a super busy street, so it's not going to sell for what a house set back in that neighborhood would. But if you wrap the driveway around the back, it's a lot more appealing. So like your average investor might go in there and think, I'm going to fix this up and finish the basement. Well, I wouldn't finish the basement. I'd spend the money on the driveway, and that would make the house sell for a lot more. So there's things you can tweak to like get better returns if you know the industry and what you're doing, but it still was like really, really slim. Um, so business ownership, then you get to investments. And again, I tell everyone like still diversify. Like I was stubborn and saying I'm just going to invest in real estate. No, you got to have a 401k. Like you have to have, your Acorns account. Like you got to have stuff set up outside of just real estate because even though I think real estate is the safest investment, in my opinion, you have to have other things. So being the highest level is being an investor. That's what the wealthiest people in the world are. They just invest in businesses, right? Or buy stocks. That's where you want to get is to the point where you're making so much money off your real estate investments that you can invest in other things. Like for instance, I'm looking at a bowling alley with the group right now. The bowling alley pays a large chunk of the rent for the shopping center that's for sale. So if we can invest in the bowling alley, we can fund our shopping center because we can get a loan based off what the bowling alley pays to the rent and then get rent from all the other tenants as well. That's an investment. It's a real estate investment, but I'm investing in that business to make the real estate investment work. Is it going to work out? I don't know. It's a lot to look at, but that's where you start to like snowball it. Leadership, expansion, and impact. I think the impact part for me is the biggest because I think the big impact part for me is the biggest because I've always been of the mindset like I'd like to give back as much as possible. Like I join whatever organizations we can locally, and if I'm able to give back like in any way, that's huge, and that's why I'm doing this. It's not, yeah, it's nice to like create the lifestyle I want, but money's not going to make you happy. It's just reality. So, all right. So the 7 grid levels of wealth apply to anyone looking to grow a real estate portfolio. The goal is to learn the rules, build a business, and acquire investments. Then use leverage to expand, outsource, and make money with money rather than trade your time for money. Elon Musk pays himself in loans on his company. The reason he does that is because if you're paying yourself in a loan, you don't get taxed on it, right? If you buy an investment property today and 10 years from now, doesn't even have to be that long if you do a really good job of managing it, improving the value, especially with commercial, and it's worth a lot more, you can go borrow on that property. You could borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars from that property and not claim it on your taxes because it's a loan, right? That's how the wealthy become wealthy. They create assets, they create equity in those assets, and they use the equity to fund their life or to invest in more. That's the make money with money thing. That's the leverage to expand and outsource, right? This is, if you've ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I think anyone who's ever gotten into real estate investing has read that book. It's the first book I read in 2011 when I was, how do I get out of my day job? That's where I started. It's you start as an employee, you become a self-employed, then a business owner, then an investor. So in the game, you're looking to go from employee, business owner, and from self-employed to an investor, like I just said. Employee is where most people spend their lives, and that's fine. Again, if this is too much for you, don't do it. There's plenty of people that make a great living just being an employee and retiring off a 401k. You trade your time and skills for money, and you may have a bit more security by letting someone else run the business. But if you don't work and you don't get paid, and when you do get paid, you pay the most in taxes. So self-employed, you may be the boss and even make more money, but you're still just working just for yourself. The tax benefits are only marginally better than employees status, and your income is still dependent on how hard you work. Business owner is to own a business. You must be delegating taxes or tasks and responsibilities to others and have systems in place that allow your business to run without you. You'll know you own a business when you can leave it for a month and earn as much or more income while you're away. Investor, the business owner owns a business and a system for making money. The investor owns assets that make money for him or her. The game is to take the money you have earned from other work/businesses and acquire assets that increase in value and create income by themselves. The way I look at this is I'm living this in my life, right? I used to be an employee. I worked for a credit union, doing loans, trading my time for money, or my time and skills for money. And then I became a real estate agent, or if you want to leave your job and start a restaurant or whatever you're doing, start a power washing company. You're a business owner or you're self-employed, and you're still 100% reliant on your time for money, right? And I learned that very quickly being a real estate agent. I was like, I'm going to become a real estate agent, make all this money, and it's going to solve my problems. And it's not. Yes, I'd say I went from a 9 to 5 to a 5 to 9. Like I literally work nonstop. I love it because that's who I am, and I don't think that'll ever change. But uh, it's not it's not something you can scale over time. So eventually, I had to start hiring people, to start hiring back end staff, agents, to grow my business and support my business. So I became a business owner, and that helped me grow even more. And now I'm using that money to invest in real estate. And eventually, that real estate and all those investments are going to outperform my businesses. And I probably still won't stop, but like that's the goal, right? So figuring out where you are in this quadrant and where you want to be. The goal is to be the investor. Doesn't matter how long it takes. The goal is to get there. If you want to go from actively working for money to earning passive income, you must learn to become an investor. Again, that phrase, passive income, it's not really that passive. Like, even if you own, like the guy who was here in November that did the apartment building one we did, he has 700 units. He works for his investors. Like, he is uh, employed by his investors to scale these properties, to operate them, and to show value, right? And it's not passive. Like, he's down at his buildings in the South all the time. Like, can he live a much freer lifestyle than most? Sure, because he's picking his hours, he's picking when he gets to go there, all those things, but he's still responsible for these things. And anything could happen. He gave this great example, which is scary, but it's a reality. They have like 100-unit building in St. Louis, and a lady on the first floor uh, started dating this guy that was like a year out of prison. They didn't know, and he tried to attack her, and she shot him. And the insurance company found out, and they raised the insurance $500 per units on the building. And now the building is negative cash flow immediately, because that's a massive hit. And he has to find a way to protect his investors by getting that building sold. That stuff happens when you're even at that level, right? So you're still working. So let's get started. Step one, reality check. Where are you now? Sitting down and figuring out which level of the quadrant you're in. Step two, what are your total household incomes? What is your current net worth? You need to know where you are so you can plot the course to where you want to be. Be realistic, right? Like, don't. Hey Kim, if you don't mind, can you mute? There's a little bit of background noise. So you need to figure out where you plan on being eventually, right? What I look at when I evaluate properties, I heard this rule probably 10 years ago, and I thought I can way outperform it, and now I know it's a good rule for a reason. I look to make $200 per door per property, right? So if it's a single family home, if I can make $200 or more in pure profit, I'm happy. If it's a 10-unit building, I can make $2,000 a month in pure profit, I'm happy. You're like, well, that sounds light. Well, you have to think taxes, insurance, property management. You're putting away, and property management is a big one, because a lot of people say, well, it's only 10% to get a property manager. Well, that's not factoring that your property manager takes 1 month's rent when they have to re-rent the property. So if you factor 1 month's rent on top of the 10% they're taking every year, every month, it's really 18%, right? A property manager costs you 18%, not 10%. So when you're running your numbers, use 18%. That's like a trick I learned a couple of years ago, and I wish I knew it from day one. Because I heard some investors saying they do 30% expenses. And I'm like, man, that seems really high. When you factor the property manager's 18%, and then you're putting away 5% for vacancies and 5% for expenses or capex, it is 30%. That's what you should be factoring. So if you're renting a property for $1,000, you're making $700 before you pay your mortgage, taxes, and insurance. So if your mortgage, taxes, and insurance are more than $500 a month on that property, I'm not buying it because I'm not making my $200 spread, right? So that's like a really simple back of napkin math type way to evaluate a property. But if you from now start evaluating a property manager at 18%, you'll always have good properties, right? So, this is basic stuff, but how much are you spending? Are you overspending? Can you minimize debt? You see all those ads of these companies that say they'll figure out what subscriptions you have. Like, just look at your bank statement and see what's pulling from your accounts, but do that, right? Like, get your expenses down as much as possible so you can save as much, right? There are tools you can use to help you do this. All right, so number 2, learn the language and what a good deal looks like in your area. And that's really important. It doesn't have to be the area you live in, it can be the area you invest in. I now invest in Pittsburgh because I, over time, moved west. All right, I started here in 2017 because you could get good deals here. And then by 2020, the numbers didn't work for me. So I pushed out to like Pottstown. And then by 2021, they didn't work for me. So I pushed out to Harbin County and Allegheny County, like the Pocono region. And then by 22, like I was bidding against cash buyers from New York. And I'm like, all right, this still doesn't work for me. So now I'm in Pittsburgh. And probably in a few years, I'll be in Ohio. Like I'm just going to keep going west until to keep finding the deals I want. And it starts by being cautious in that area, knowing the area, figuring out what works, and then growing it from there, right? But don't be afraid to change your area. So like if you're like, hey, I want to start with a $35,000 property, I'm never going to find that in the greater Philadelphia region anymore. Great. There's a whole other country, a whole other parts of the country you can look for those deals, right? So just find the right team and execute there versus here. There's a bunch of ways to evaluate properties, but cash on cash return, which is the rate of return ratio that calculates the total cash earned on the total cash equity invested in a deal. Basic formula for fix and flips, 70% of the ARV minus renovation equal purchase price. That's a really basic breakdown of a flip. You really should look at a lot more than that. But if you're trying to figure out, is that property on South Thompson worth me buying? ARV 300, times 70 minus my reno, I should pay 75 for it. I think they're asking like 150, not worth my time. Buy and hold, 1% rule, 2% rule, plus 50% rule. This doesn't work here. The 1% rule, in my opinion, has never worked here, right? When I mean here, I mean in our area, because the taxes are too high here. Like the 1% rule works in all the Bible Belt states where property taxes are nothing and you can buy properties for nothing. But to find a property for $100,000 around here that rents for $1,000 a month sounds good, but when the taxes are $3,000 and the insurance is $1,500, it's not a deal anymore, right? Yeah. So the 1% rule / 2% rule is basically if you're buying a property for $100,000, you should rent for $1,000 a month. Is what the 1% rule is, and the 2% is $2,000 a month. The 2% rule might work around here, but it's too general, right? It's like I really need to see like our taxes are so variable in our greater area. Like, you can buy a house in Abington and the taxes are $6,000, and then you can buy a house in Cheltenham, the same house, and the taxes are $10,000, right? That's two completely different evaluations. So it's a big change, right? I don't know what that is. Like, I've never even used that. I don't know what the 50% rule is, but I can guarantee you it doesn't work here. Learn how to prospect, network, and market for deals. So this is something we kind of touched on. You can be really boots on the ground, like, I'm going to go knock on doors that look like vacant homes. I'm going to get lists. You can get higher level, like you can get lists from sites like PropStream or any of these other sites that run for foreclosures and vacancies, and they'll do skip traces and get you numbers. You can get really high level and have
But we never plugged it back on either. And we figured out that there was this large rock pile right next to our
Okay. You can get really high level, and like right now, I have an AI bot calling a list of 12,000 numbers and speaking to them, and and it's pretty wild. But I don't have the time to call 12,000 numbers, so I'm gonna have AI do it for me. And it sounds like, and I started that Monday, and I had an appointment yesterday at 5:30. It was like insane listening to this thing. I'll play it to you guys after all this, but it's wild. Like AI is gonna destroy us all. But PropStream. So I went on propstream.com and I looked up all of the pre-foreclosures, pre, pre-probate, um, the whole list they provide. And I looked up all the surrounding counties, Philadelphia, Montgomery, Chester, Bucks, Delaware. I looked up Allegheny County because I invest out there, Washington County, that's all by Pittsburgh, and then the counties I invest in. And I pulled the whole list and then paid for the numbers. It wasn't cheap, but I mean, I heard one sale and it's like, ridiculous return, right? Like that list cost me $1,200. And if I get one sale and if I flip it and I make 30 or $40,000, well, it's totally worth it, right? What's that? Yeah. Yeah. That took a while. Yeah. I had to like build the scripts for it and like how, like the inflections and how it responds. There's companies that'll do that for you, but it's a lot more expensive. So I was trying to cut corners and do it myself. And yeah, that's scary. Hmm? It can call 100 numbers at a time. Yeah. Yeah. That's wild. It'll just like ring, ring, ring. And then when someone answers, it stops and it starts doing its thing. Okay. This is a marketing business. You need to learn to use marketing, right? The message is simple. We buy houses. You ever drive through neighborhoods and you see those "We buy houses" sign? You ever get those letters in the mail? You ever get those calls? That's people trying to buy your house. Now, most of them are what's called wholesalers. You guys familiar with wholesaling? It's I'm not a fan of wholesaling because I'm a real estate agent and that's like anti what I do. Wholesalers are trying to get the house at a reduced price and sell it to an investor at the actual value, essentially stealing the equity in the middle without ever actually purchasing the house. It's legal. I think it's not what having a real estate license is, so I don't do it. But there are ways to find deals, and I'd be lying to you if I haven't bought a property from a wholesaler before. Never done a wholesale deal myself, but that's because I'm afraid of losing my real estate license. I wouldn't want that to affect who I am and like my reputation with my clients. If I'm going to do a deal that way, I'm going to buy it at the market value. I don't need to make the spread, right? So the wholesaler is offering the seller way less than they should because they're trying to sell it to an investor. Well, I'm the investor, so I can just offer them this, right? And I don't have to worry about what happens when it comes back on me. Yeah. So at the appointment, the wholesaler shows up and they have the seller sign what's called an assignment contract. They never have any intention of closing on the property. The intention is to sell the contract. And if they can't sell it, the seller's left high and dry because they didn't know that they were supposed to get a deposit or do all of these things. The new law is they have to have a real estate license, which is crazy. Like I feel like it's the most anti-real estate license thing. So I don't know why. And they're doing it because they want to have like a state board, like kind of having some sort of control over it. Uh, yeah, they're supposed to disclose it. All those contracts say they can assign it. That's all it says is that it's an assignment contract, you know. Or you could just put, purchased by Home Buyers LLC or their assignees. That's a disclosure. So it, yeah. Now they have to. As of this year, they're required to, which seems wild. But and look, I'm not poo-pooing. They don't ever pay anything. They like they're so a quick breakdown of a wholesale is the wholesale deal is you do some marketing. You send out like, we'll buy your house cash. You go, someone calls you. They're like, I really need to sell my house. So you sniff blood in the water. You show up. You know that house is worth $100,000 fixed up. An investor will probably pay $50,000 for it. You tell the seller it's worth 30, right? So you get them to sign a contract saying they're going to sell the house to you for 30. You then take that contract and go blast it out to all your clients and say, hey, I have this house. I'm selling it for 50. You could buy the contract. They buy the contract from you. So you assign, the wholesaler assigns the contract to the investor. The seller comes to closing. They're not ever sitting with the wholesaler. They're sitting across the table or in a different room from the actual investor that's buying the property. On the settlement sheet, it says construction fee or consulting fee for $20,000. That goes to the wholesaler. It really should have went to the seller, right? But they didn't know what their house was worth. They send mailers, they do mailing lists and phone calls and they're investing, so they're marketing. It's a business, and there's wholesaling businesses that make millions and millions of dollars every year. Uh, it's yeah, that's what it is. I mean, and some of them do serve a purpose. Like some of them position themselves as like we're looking to help desperate sellers that need to sell now, and but most sellers don't know that if you just listed the property, it would have sold now. Like, and you would have gotten market value because multiple people that actually could pay the price for it would have seen it, right? But they think so like one instance I've had of a good deal that made sense was a seller contacted one of my partners through Facebook. It wasn't her, it was her aunt inherited this house from their parents. There's three of them on the estate. The brother's living there. He's an alcoholic. They can't get him out. They don't want anything to do with it. They just want him out of the house and they want to sell it. And so, yeah, so what do you want for the property? They said, we want this. I said, hey, they gave me a number of 80,000. I said, if I put it on the market, I can get 120 for you. And they said, we can't get him out. Like, we don't want to deal with that. I was like, well, I'll buy it from you for 80, but I have to put it on the contract that I can get it for you. I can get 120 for you on the market. They agreed. I showed up to the house with a case of beer and the guy left. Like he was an alcoholic. He was happy for a case of beer and he got an Uber, and we got him a U-Haul and he left. It wasn't that hard to get him out. They just didn't want to deal with their brother. There are situations like that I understand, family, you don't want to get mixed up in. It ended up being a great flip for me. It's probably one of the best flips I've ever done, like in terms of return. There are cases like that, but they're few. Like the majority of people should just list their house. You know. Mhm. I mean, they're targeting people that don't know. It's usually older people. Mhm. Technically can't because the seller has a contract with them to sign with the wholesaler. If I've helped people get out of wholesale contracts because I know if you contact the title company that the wholesaler said they made their deposit with and the deposit wasn't made within the allotted time period, the contract's void. And I've gotten people out of their wholesale contract and sold their house on the market for the right price. There's like little legalities that wholesalers look to skip over. Again, I'm not a bunch of wholesalers will hate me for saying this stuff, but like, it's how I feel about it. It's a reality. We talk in reals. They might say, well, real estate agents suck. You guys, blah, blah, blah. Whoever, to each their. Yeah, I feel like you're setting yourself up for eventually a lawsuit and losing your license, right? Because the consumer notice said you're supposed to do what's in the fiduciary right of your client. You're doing what's in the fiduciary right of your clients, not selling their house or not giving them 20, 30 grand less than their house is worth, right? Uh, so prospecting, drive for dollars, make offers, call agents to let them know you're a buyer. network, find places that other investors, wholesalers, and agents gather to build a network of people who can bring you opportunities. Hint like this. Market, learn the messaging method and budgets to get sellers to call you. Okay. Step 4, buy rentals, preferably using the BRRRR method. I do 2 of the 11 classes I do each year is on the BRRRR method. It's what I've used to invest in real estate my entire career. Every rental property I own, I purchased using the BRRRR method. I think it's the best way to invest in real estate if you're not sitting on a pile of cash, right? If you're already have a ton of money and you want to buy turnkey rentals, go for it, right? Never going to stop you. But if you are looking to rinse and reuse the same money over and over and grow it, the BRRRR method is a much longer path and a much more involved path, but the value is there. And I'll give you an example. So one of my good friends is he was buying turnkey rentals. He bought like 5 before him and I started talking. And he would buy one every couple years and to save up again and then put 25% down. Whenever you buy a turnkey rental, you have to put 25% down, right? You might find some lenders that'll let you do 15% down if you have enough assets with them and things like that. But for the most part, it's 25% down, right? Well, if you're buying $200,000 houses, that's 50 grand each time, plus closing costs, 60 grand, right? The BRRRR method is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. The structure is you're looking for a fixer-upper. You're not looking for a turnkey rental. And yes, you're going to put probably 25% down when you buy the fixer-upper. Some lenders let you put 20 or even 10% down because you're getting a fix and flip loan, right? You're fixing it up. So you're fixing it up to what the market value says that house should look like now, right? So I'll always use my Southwest Philly property because it's a really easy math. That property I got for $35,000. I knew by running comps, and at the time I was an agent, so I can run comps. If you're not an agent, ask an agent to run comps for you. That fixed up, that house was worth $100,000. But it needed a good amount of work. It needed a roof. Had some structural problems. It needed kitchen. And so I bought the house for $35,000. I put $40,000 into it, including my closing costs, my holding costs, and everything, right? So I was all in $75,000. I went to another bank. Usually the bank that gives you the fix and flip loan won't refinance their own debt. So you have to go to a different bank. I don't make the rules. I think it's silly, but so I had to go to a different bank and say, hey, well, first I had to rent it, right? So I rented it. I went to a different bank and I said, hey, I bought this property for 35. I put 40 into it. It's worth 100 now. Send your appraiser out to appraise it. I want 75% back. Got all my money back because I'm 75K into it. 75% of $100,000, $75,000. It's able to do it all over again, right? That's the method of BRRRR. That scales on every level. So I started with properties like that doing BRRRR. Started doing that to duplexes, then triplexes, then 5 units. Now we're doing that on 10-unit buildings. And it gets really exciting once you're over 4 units. Once you hit 5 units and above, it's now a commercial property. And they're not necessarily looking at comparable sales. They're looking at cap rates and DSCR, which it's exciting because with a single family or a duplex or a triplex or a quad, you actually have to buy it and do a good amount of work to it to show the value you've put into it. With a 5-unit plus building, I can buy it and simply raise the rents, and now it's worth more, right? Like I can buy a grandma, grandpa type, like the first property I bought in Pittsburgh, this guy's owned it for like 30 years. He was charging $500 a month for these units. They're 850 units all day. He just didn't want to deal with it. 4 of the units were vacant, just needed work. The furnaces needed replacing. So I bought it and immediately started renewing the leases at higher rents, replacing furnaces. But I wasn't doing a ton at first. I was just raising rents and renting the vacant ones. I bought it for $375. It just appraised for $800,000. Now, this is after I put furnaces into it and some other work, but I didn't put that much into it. I put like 125 into it. and it's worth 800 now because mostly because I raised the rents. And over the next few months, I'm going to add a laundry room that's going to bring me $100 a month. Add that into my cap rate, that's going to raise my value about $30,000 a year just for doing that. That's where it gets fun when you start to learn how to play with the numbers on apartments. And that's why people scale up eventually, is because they want to start doing that stuff. You can't do that with single family, duplex, triplex, quad, because they're still just looking at comparable sales, right? But it's the same concept of Burr. Yeah. Mhm. You chase the market, right? So I would find those things here 7 years ago. Then in 2020, I wasn't finding them anymore, so I pushed out. I found a 10 unit in Pottstown that I paid 545 for, but it's worth 900 now. Mostly because I've just been lightly updating the units and raising the rents, right? It took time. Like it's not a burr I can do in 3 months if it's a simple burr. An apartment building is 1 to 2 years, right? So like it could be more, but a light apartment building is a couple years of improvements before you get that extra value out of it. The good thing about it though is if I am able to take more out of it than I put in, that's a loan. So I'm not paying income taxes or capital gains on that money, right? So when the lender came back and said it's worth 800 and they're like, well, we can give you, it was like 600 versus the 500 you wanted. I did the math and my rent still covered my expenses. So I was like, yeah, give me the money. I'm going to go buy another building with that 100K I made. Like that's the fun part about, but that was a 2 year building. Believe me, it was a lot of work. And like, it's not easy to find those deals, but you have to just look. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I'm not a I- I'm not a show up with a club kind of guy. Like I play by the rules. So, and I know people that don't. I what's There's people that do that stuff. Yeah. I can't. I don't have that in me, but I bought like a package of properties in Southwest before, and when I realized how rough it is to get people out of properties in the city of Philadelphia, I just started selling them off at like a marginal increase. And this one guy bought three from me. I'm like, how are you getting these people out? They were like threatening to shoot me. And he's like, I grew up in Southwest. I got this. And I'm like, like, all right, man, do you? But if you're into that, sure. It's not for me. I'm letting you know when I purchase the property, the intent is to raise the rents. Uh, it's not going to be absurd if I'm not touching your unit. Like it'll be incremental over years if I'm not doing any work to your unit. But if I'm completely turning over your unit, it's going to be market value, right? So I'm not going to go too deep into the apartment building stuff because that's like a whole other class. But yeah. Grow a network of professionals to help you manage your portfolio. This is big because around here, I can manage my properties. And when I say around here, I mean within a 30-minute radius of me, max. I have a property in North Philly that takes me about 40 minutes to get to with traffic. And like today, the alarm sensor was going off, and I was like, I can't get there till tomorrow morning because of like all the stuff I had to do today, right? And so I had to call um like a servicer for the alarm company, and it's going to cost me money for them to go out and just hit reset. It's literally all they're doing is hitting reset, and none of my tenants wanted to do it. So like, it's got to be within reason of you, or else you're gonna end up spending money for it, right? I probably should get a property manager for that building. So everything I have outside of a half hour, I have property managers for. You shouldn't go it alone. You'll need agents, lenders, property managers, contractors, attorneys, financial advisors who specialize in real estate investments. So this is really important, even in my real estate sales business. When I first started, I within a year and a half, I heard of like converting my business to an S corp to pay less taxes. I talked to my accountant. He's like, "Nah, you don't want to do that. That's silly." He's an older guy, so I went on another year, and then one of my like a guy I talked to that was in the business a long time was like, did you convert to an S corp yet? I'm like, no, my accountant said not to do that. And he goes, you don't have a real estate agent accountant. Like, you need to go find one that's good with real estate agents. And I did. And immediately she told me, you absolutely have to do this. And it saved me like 20 grand in my taxes the next year. Like, I was wasting money because I just didn't know the tax structure for real estate account or real estate agents. So then once I started doing real estate investments, I found an accountant that knows how to deal with taxes for real estate investors. Like, pick the people that do what you do, right? Don't just find any accountant. They're not all cut from the same cloth. The thing about real estate, and the saying is true, buy real estate and wait. Okay. I don't care if it doesn't make you a ton of money right now. Appreciation goes up, rental income slightly go up, loan gets paid down. I don't care if the market crashes tomorrow. I don't, because I bought my properties smart enough that I know even if the value is below what I paid for it, I'm still making enough money to keep it. And eventually it'll come back, right? All of those people that sold, and not the irresponsible ones, like you guys remember 2008, the housing market crashed. If you ever saw the movie Big Short, they were like giving strippers five, like with like no doc loans to buy five properties. That's irresponsible by those lenders and by the strippers. But like, in terms of like, if you're a person that bought a home and or an investment property and you bought it right, if the market goes down, and all of those people, they'll tell you that the people that foreclosed or got rid of their properties in 2008 are kicking themselves. Those properties are worth 60% more than they were when the market crashed, right? If you just waited, you would have got it back in like a lot more than you would ever think. Historically, real estate in America has never gotten cheaper. It's that simple, right? When people are like, I'm going to wait for the market to crash, or I'm going to wait for the interest rate. And I get this a lot in my regular real estate business where my client will be like, we're going to wait for the rates to come down, or we're going to wait for the market to crash. My mom said, wait. I'm like, ask your mom how much she paid for her house, right? In 1980, when she bought her house for $15,000 or whatever at 18%, did she wait then? No. And that house is now worth what, $600,000? Like, don't wait. There's never the right time to buy. It's just the right deal, right? So anything over time will make sense eventually if you manage it correctly. Just be a good building operator. So, what's stopping you? Let's bust some common myths. Number one, it takes money to make money. You don't need money, you need knowledge. Everyone starts at zero. Grid will show you how to find resources to fund any opportunity. This is big because there's ways to do deals. When I got out of my nightmare deal, which is my house, and the equity started to build up in it because the real estate market improved, I took out a line of credit on it. I started using that to invest. Um, there's ways you can fund deals using commercial loans. Like, you can talk to people in your network and see if they want to syndicate. I wouldn't recommend syndicating to start. Don't jump to the highest level. Build your way up, but do a simple deal. Like, you can talk to a family member, and I've done this before where I'll say like to a friend, hey, this property I need between the closing costs, holding costs, and down payment, I need 40 grand. Lend me 40 grand at 10% per month. I'll pay you interest only. And when I refi, I'll give you the 40 grand back. It's a simple transaction. And you can record that lien as a second loan on the property to give them extra security, right? So for some reason it doesn't work out or you have to foreclose, there's a chance they get if not all of their money back. I don't know enough. Everything I've learned has been free. I haven't paid a dime for my real estate knowledge. It's all been podcasts. I mean, I buy books and stuff, but like, I'm not paying tens of thousands of dollars. I'm listening to ebooks because I don't have time to really read. But I'm learning everything for free, right? So it's just, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay a ton of money. Just go on YouTube, or I mean, there's a gazillion podcasts. There's so many, books about real estate investing. Most investors will give you everything for free. Like, you don't have to join big fancy networking groups that cost a lot of money. I don't have any connections. Again, when I started, I didn't, and I started going to groups like this. That's what I did. I didn't have kids, so I could go out at night, and I went to groups, and that was how I got most of my connections, and I did it through my clients, and I ate other agents in my office and brokers. Like I just found people that were doing it at a higher level than me, and I listened to what they were doing. Um, there's plenty. I mean, your meetup.com, Facebook, all of these things have groups you can go to, and they'll share knowledge, like crazy amounts of knowledge. So the number one thing to stop people, obviously fear. Fear comes from lack of knowledge, overanalysis, analysis paralysis, they call it. You can overthink a deal and stop yourself, because you start getting into like, well, what if the neighbor who looks like it's a trashy house, starts doing, you just get into every aspect of the deal too much so, and then you forget what the point of it is, which is just an investment. You're not going to live there, right? I do some investing with my wife's uncle. He's a retired teacher, and he wanted something fun to do with his free time. So we bought a couple houses together, and he loves being like the project manager, which I don't love doing. So I'm happy to do it with him. And, the first deal was like pulling teeth with him. He was like, well, this, he was overthinking everything. And finally, I'm like, let's just do this one, like, I promise you, you won't regret it. And that was 2019. And we bought a twin on Fairview Road for $110,000 and we fixed it up. And today it's worth $325,000. Like, we put 60 grand into that thing. We've almost doubled our money on it in 6 years because of COVID. He was analyzing that property like it was the end of the world. And I'm like, dude, let's just do this one. Like you'll see. Um, I'm not saying all are going to work out that way, but I'm saying just jump in. Jump in on a small one. If you fail, you'll break even. And then you could do it again, just doing what you've learned on a better one, right? Uh, the fear goes away the more you do it. Like buying my first big building was scary. Now I don't even go to the property. I literally see it online, analyze it, send my property manager to walk the property with the listing agent. I write the offer. The offer gets accepted. I send my property manager back with my home inspector. They inspect it. We close on it here with my title company and my lender. And then the property manager collects the keys and I haven't gone to the property. And that's like the first one, I didn't do that. The last three, I did. And it's because I did one and I'm like, I took my bruises. There's only so much that can go wrong. You just but if you miss a step, you can get hurt, right? In action, learn, but don't let learning get in the way of action. Again, similar. Lack of community. Again, put yourself around people that are investing in real estate. My first two real estate investments didn't go well because I tried to do them myself. I was trying to do them whilst I was running a real estate business and I didn't have the time and I was making a lot of mistakes. Now I have 2 to 3 partners on every deal I do because we have an understanding. It's like if one person is slacking, the other person can pick it up in the meantime. If I'm super busy today and there's something going wrong at a property, please jump in, and that's the understanding you have with partners, but make sure you choose the right partners, right? And then bad advice. Again, I'll scare anyone out of buying a property. And if they still want to do it, then I know they're in for this. But there's a lot of agents that don't invest. I think the stat is 60 or 70% of real estate agents don't even own their primary home. So if they've ever invested or purchased a property, don't let them tell you how to do it, right? Like let them prove their track record. Just like I make contractors prove how much jobs they've done to me. And like people make me prove my worth to them before they choose for let me help them buy or sell a house. It's the same thing. If they're good at what they do, they'll be able to prove it to you. Mhm. Um, so I didn't really know much people when I started. I moved here in 2002 from the Caribbean, so I didn't have I was 15. I didn't have like I didn't grow up with friends here. Moved here with just my immediate family. So by the time I got into real estate, I might have known like 20 people, maybe 30. And I, there's a myth, and I teach this to all my new agents, that when you start as a real estate agent, you should call your entire sphere. That's not true, because your sphere doesn't know you as a real estate agent. They know you as whatever you do now, right? So they don't trust you as a real estate agent yet. Yeah, you have to earn that, and in order to earn that, you have to go out and work with a bunch of other people that don't know you that don't know you prior to being a real estate agent, and get that traction, post about it on your social media, share your stories with your friends and family, and eventually they'll come around to trust you. But your sphere is not where you start your business, unless like you're in a real estate community or something like that. Maybe your dad was a realtor and you can get leads. Things like that are different. But the general person that's becoming a real estate agent, targeting your sphere is not going to get you the business you think right away. Okay. There's a lot. I know this one was a lot of slides. So, let's go into a few more. Learn how to evaluate rental and flip properties, and to do estimated costs and cash flow. The number one thing people ask me is, how do I estimate how much this job's going to cost? You just got to do a few. There's really no easy way to learn what things cost. Because if you're just trusting your contractor, that's blind faith, right? If you're trusting what your agent's saying to you, again, that's blind faith. The only way you start to learn what things cost is by doing deals, right? And now I can walk into a property and kind of figure out what this is going to cost me before I even write it down, because I kept doing it over and over and again. I've seen the cost of what things cost, and I know what my contractor is going to charge me for framing and for insulation and for how many per window and what the kitchen's going to cost. But that took a lot of deals to get to that point. Do the deals. Just don't, your first one, maybe get 3 to 5 bids from contractors to see what the ballpark is, and play it safe in the beginning, and then learn as you go. There's other ways to invest in real estate, subject to and creating creative financing. Subject to is the seller's holding the loan, right? So you've sellers owned a property for a long time. It's paid off. They want $1 million for this building. And that's like an extreme example, right? It's worth $800,000. Well, ask them, will they hold the loan at $1 million? Because if so, I'll pay you $1 million. You hold the loan and give me like 4% interest on it. And then the deal works, right? You now, as a seller, get the price you want over time. You're getting interest on it. You don't have to pay a massive capital gains because you're taking back the loan. You're not taking that wholesale in 1 year. There's a lot of benefits to you as the seller, and me as the buyer. I'm not coming out of pocket, right? Now that's a really easy, crisp, way to break that down. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's essentially the idea behind subject to or creative financing. Short-term rental is, personally, not a huge fan. During COVID, everyone's like, I'm buying 6 short-term rentals and I'm going to go live in Costa Rica and I never have to work ever again. That's like what you were hearing over and over again. That's not reality. That was great when no one had to come to work, but now that people have had to come back to work, the short-term rental market is crashed. Not everywhere, but it's come back to where it should have been. So like Airbnb stock is way down. If you bought a property and you overpaid for it because it was making you all this money, now you have to sell it at a loss, right? I also, short-term rentals put you in the hospitality business. I don't want to be in hospitality, right? I want long-term renters, right? I want people that are going to pay rent month after month. I don't have to keep dealing with turnovers and maids, and that's not for me. Maybe someday I'll get to a hotel because we're playing Monopoly, but today I don't want that, right? I'm not saying don't do it though. There's great ways to get short-term rentals. If you go to buy a second home, you only have to put 10% down if you say it's going to be a vacation home for you and your family. So you can buy a nice short-term rental or a nice vacation home somewhere, the beach, the Poconos, wherever. And as long as it makes sense, but don't expect to get rich off of it. Expect it to cover the expenses of the property and maintain it and give you some usage and eventually pay down the mortgage, but it'll take a long time. Uh, Learn how to use the tax code to your advantage. This is the biggest part, right? Another reason I invest heavily in real estate properties that might not be making me money today is because I get to depreciate the value and write down my income. I'm a business owner. So every property I own is a write-off for me. Eventually, I'm going to get to the point that it looks like I'm making no money, right? That's what everyone does that buys real estate. They're writing down their income with it. Learn how to structure your business for asset protection. I don't own outside of my primary home. I don't own anything in my personal name. They're all LLCs. I don't like having LLCs that have more than $1 million in equity in them. Um, Meaning not $1 million property, but $1 million property is paid off, right? Because at that point, the property becomes more valuable than the insurance policy I have on the property. And if someone's suing me, I want them to go after the insurance, not my property, right? So I pay for insurance. So generally, I wouldn't hold any one LLC with more than my insurance covers in equity. Okay. Questions? I know that was a lot. Again, this is Real Estate 101, so we cover a lot of topics. Um, we cover a lot of topics on this one. As the year goes on, we dive into each one of those topics. Burrs, like I said, is a whole class by itself. Apartment buildings is a whole class by itself. 1031 is a whole class by itself. Short-term rentals, a whole class by itself. Each one of those things is a whole hour and a half class easy. But this one just kind of prepares you for what's to come over the year. So questions? As long as you can say you work more than 20 hours a week on real estate, you can claim yourself as a real estate professional and you do get that tax
That a
benefit.
realtor can
Yeah,
my time showing
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're saying,
properties.
hmm,
Because we just have primary home for now.
mhm.
But my goal is to obviously get into investing.
That's a good question for your accountant. Yeah, yeah.
Just wanted
I
to
would ask for that, but I know I do it. But
Yeah,
again,
that's
I
fine.
have
Yeah.
investment property
Sure.
side. But so if you can prove that you spend 20 hours or more in real estate, there's a specific tax write-off called reps real estate uh something professional. Yeah, that there's a tax write-off for 20 hours or more a week. Yeah,
And you have to actively participate
in real estate.
all the law.
Yep.
And you can drop off your passive with your WP income.
Mhm.
So with the burr, with the like repeat and a second property,
Mhm. Yeah. And if you're working with the same amount, think about it this way, right? Let's like that property I did, do four of those, then sell them all. Now you have $100,000 in equity and go buy a $500,000 building with 20% down, right? That's the idea is if you're not getting more and more each time and you're just working with the same amount of money, get to the point that you have enough properties that you can clump that equity and go buy something bigger.
and start like
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like how much risk can you take, right? If you're just getting started, you're not sitting on millions of dollars, don't go buy a 5 or 10 or 15 unit building because if that goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong, right? Start with a row home, or a townhouse, even a simple single family. Like start with something that is, if it goes wrong at worst, maybe you lose a couple of $1,000 where you just get out even, but you learned. And more than likely, your first deal is you're not going to make any money on. You're going to make all your mistakes on your first deal. So just assume that this can go bad. Now, my neighbor, her husband just did his first flip with me. And he did well, but it's because I was like, I didn't want him to do bad. So I was literally every step like, don't do this, do this. Like, use my guy for this. And if you have someone there that can help you that way, you're gonna make money on your first deal. But don't expect in most cases to make money on your first deal. Take your bruises, learn from it, and come back swinging. You know,
What was the thing you said?
203K. Yeah, well, there's a 203K is the FHA version of it. Home style is the conventional version of it. There's a 5% down home style mortgage you can get. That the good thing with the FHA though is because it's FHA, you can go up to 4 units, whereas conventional you can only do 2 units
Well, the PFHA.
because that's a conventional product.
5%.
Hmm. 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 But like FHA is 3.5% down, and you can get a 6% seller's assist. So like, you can buy pretty cheap. What's that?
Yeah, you have to live in it for a year.
Yeah, yeah, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're supposed to live in it. Yeah, yeah.
If they came out, you weren't
Who's have you ever heard of a lender coming out to a property? I've been doing this for 10 years now. I've never had a lender ever show up to a property ever. All they care about is that you're paying your mortgage, you know? Now, yes, if you don't show that you have a utility bill there or something there, but it's never happened to me. Yeah.
Did you like obviously the surrounding areas and now you're like branching out to Pittsburgh? Why are you not going to Jersey?
Landlord tenant laws. New Jersey, New York, it's the city of Philadelphia. I want not, yeah, I want nothing to do with it anymore. Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah.
That benefits your tenants like
I, I mean, if you can prove it's a home your family's using for vacations, I think it has to be like 100 miles from you or something like that. Uh, then if it can make you money, you can do it. I don't know how much money you're gonna make in the center of New Jersey. Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, like Highlands and all that stuff up there. Yeah. Again, it's like who's checking, right? Like they're not geotagging you. Your lender doesn't have time for that. But again, you want to,
like Jersey, like whatever the shopping cart. No, it has vacation.
which one?
Just like that's how they feel about
It's what they're doing is Florida has good tax laws. Yeah. Yeah. Florida, Texas.
it. They're like from May to August.
Yeah.
What you were saying, you don't want
Oh, no, they're living in Florida because of state income tax.
Yeah.
If they spend more time in Florida, they pay less income tax because that's their primary residence. Yeah, that's what, yeah,
not
yeah. They show that they live most of their time in Florida. A lot of people go to Puerto Rico because there's great income taxes for living in Puerto Rico. But then, all right, well, you can Google the worst states for landlord-tenant relations, and you'll see the top 10. California, unfortunately, it's blue states, right? I'm not Republican or Democrat. I'm an independent. I don't care. I think they're all assholes. I think generally the landlord-friendly states are red states. Pennsylvania was a blue state though, and for the most part, outside of Philadelphia, was landlord friendly, meaning the rules made sense. The rules in Philadelphia make no sense, like none. I'm burnt out of Philadelphia. But again, I'm investing in Southwest, North. I'm not investing in Center City or, Northern Liberties or, these hot spots, right? Like your rents are so high there, you're kind of isolated because the tenant that can afford that rent generally has assets, has better credit. Not all the time, but generally. I'm taking more risk to make more of a spread, and you end up with dealing with more issues. Like a tenant in general, to get a tenant out of your property that's not paying in Philly is on average 12 months now. Yeah. And I've done that 3 times this year, and I've sold all those properties. So yeah. Kim, so I'm gonna end the Zoom. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
what do you think about flipping in this market? Is this still a good market
Yes.
for it?
So Kim's asking what my thoughts are on flipping. And when I first got into real estate, I thought flips sucked because I thought you had to pay taxes on each one of them, and you do. And it's another job, right? I was like, well, I have to flip to make money. I have to keep flipping to make money. It's never going to get passive, right? The reality is flips are a necessary evil. In order to scale your real estate portfolio, you have to flip, right? You cannot strictly lean on your W-2 income and the income you make off your rentals. If you want to grow at a faster scale, you got to flip, right? So even if that's making 10 or $20,000, which doesn't sound like it's that little, but when you think about paying 20, 15 to 30% of that is taxes, and it taking 6 to 9 months of your life, you're like, man, was it worth it? Yeah, because that you do a couple of those a year, all of a sudden, instead of doing one deal, you're doing 2 deals that you're holding that year, right? And then if you do that over a few years, your portfolio scales significantly faster. So I had to learn that you have to flip. And yes, there are deals out there to find. Generally, you're going to find them off market nowadays. And you don't have to flip in your area, right? Like you can go, you could find a look for a real estate investment seminar in an area the average price point matches your budget, and find the agents that are running that, right? Find the contractors that are at that and use them because they have that reputation. They want to keep that reputation. Vet them. Um, but you can find deals here. I mean, I'm still doing flips, and I most of the flips I do are Delaware County. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So there's still hope.
You know, I said like some property now you think that property man
Mhm.
like you never actually visit the kid's house. So you don't just
No. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because you want to be able to get there a couple times a week, right? If you're not doing the work and you have contractors, don't trust your contractors to be honest with you about how much they're showing up, how much they're getting done. Go see it with your own 2 eyes, right? Uh, don't be trust but verify is what I say. Like I don't ever want to become that cynical person that doesn't trust anybody. That's not me. Even though I've been taught that lesson over and over again in my life, but I'm trust but verify. If you're sending me pictures and you're telling me all this stuff, great. I'm still gonna come see it, and I want to see it twice a week in person. I want to see it on Tuesday and Friday, uh, not Monday because I was just there on Friday and nothing's gonna get done between Friday and Monday.
although when you're down
Yeah, I do. I usually tell them, but I want them to know I'm coming constantly, and I want them to know that I'm not just gonna trust it. I want to know that you're on schedule. I want to know that, and if you're not on schedule, like you're costing me money, and you could build that stuff into your contracts, like in daily interest after the time they promised they would get the job done. Like these are things you can do. If you find a really good contractor that you like, I wouldn't squeeze them like that. I've started off a relationship with a contractor like that, and now I trust him to the point where my contracts aren't that crazy with him. It's like I know you're doing what's in my best interest. I'm still going to show up, but I'm not going to tax you if things take too long because I know you're not trying to make them take long.
that you want to like you have like investors like we're gonna invest in you just want like that
As a yeah, no. As a real estate agent, I've sold over 900 homes. And every time I've sat with the seller and they said, we don't want to sell to an investor, when that offer came in and it was better than the other offers, they sold to the
Okay.
investor. It's about money, right? So, nah, I honestly don't think that matters. I think it's at the end of the day, the seller's going to pick the offer that's best for them. It's, yeah, maybe if offers are really close and there's a sweet letter versus, a cold offer, sure. But if it's any difference that's significant to that person's lifestyle, they're going to go with that offer, regardless of who the offer is. Uh, there's this good mini series on Netflix I just finished called "No Good Deeds" or something, and uh, they're selling their house, and it's like kind of a dark comedy tied into like a murder mystery. But at first, they're like, "We don't want investors; this is our family home," and
Right.
but yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Stay that long.
no, no, no.
That long.
And if you're at an open house and there's a bunch of people there, probably not going to be the deal for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
For a while.
That's the deal
Scary.
for you.
Figure out.
Yeah. So
That.
which one?
I don't know about this
Oh yeah, yeah. 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 It's that's the one you're gonna go after. So yeah,
Trust. That.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's like I still manage my stuff close enough because it saves me the money, but two, I do still like to kind of be involved a little bit. Especially on, you know, this smaller stuff. And I mean, every one of these properties is important to me. I look at each one of them as a business. Like that's my family's future wealth. So like even the ones that are far from me, I'm not going to go see them initially to purchase, but once or twice a year, I'm going to make a trip out there to make sure my property isn't like overgrown or falling over. Or everything the property manager is telling me is correct. Because again, trust but verify. Yeah. And I plan on keeping most of these properties for a long time, like at least until I can't depreciate them any longer, which is 27 years.
And like that. The difference you get in rent. Like everything you make like 200. Like
Hmm.
that's coming to like your balance. Right.
Hmm. Well, right now, yeah,
You know, but you're not actually, all right, yeah, put this money towards the tuition.
I'm still on the climb, right? So like I have a long way to go, a long way to go. Like I don't, I every dime I make off my real estate investments go back into my real estate investments, and I live off my primary income, which is my real estate sales team. Like that's my job, and that's what I see as my income. I'm not quitting my job anytime soon. It'll come a point where the income from my investments to outweigh my sales income. I don't think I still would stop then. I like what I do. But that's when most people peel back and say, okay, now I don't have to make 10 grand a month at my primary job. So I'm making 10 grand from my rental income. And I've had enough history that my lenders are comfortable with me and they don't mind me quitting my job because they see the income from other places and I know what I'm doing. And now I'm just going to go do this. And then you definitely want to do more flips because you're going to want those surges of income that you weren't getting from that you're no longer getting from your primary job, right? Um, and that's what I mean, that's when it could become fun, because I think it's fun regardless. I mean, when you're seeing this stuff grow, even if you're only making $100, $200 a month on that door, but you have 25% equity in that property and you're seeing the value go up 5, 6% each year and the mortgage payment get paid down. And you're looking at every time you do a commercial loan, you have to fill out what's called a personal financial statement. And as you fill those, I actually enjoy filling them out because I get to see like what I've been working on and the spread. Oh, the mortgage is now this and the value is now this. And I can, go back from when I did my first one to now and be like, it's working, even though I don't feel it. Like, and my wife definitely doesn't feel it. She's like, why are you doing all this? Because she doesn't really want to be involved like you do. And she's like, just tell me everything's okay, and that's what I'll keep doing. But when you see that and it makes you happy, you're like, oh, this is really working. Um, but I don't think like anyone, once you get to that point, I think you just want to keep going deeper.
When you got a quadrant,
Mhm.
so like said employee, self-employed, and investor. So like you can only do one of those options.
No, you're all of them.
Investing that
Mhm.
you're box.
Hmm. Yeah, but the goal is to get to the fully investor, right? But usually investors still own their business, right? Yeah, yeah.
So you're on that's the rich dad side,
Uh,
right side, the rich dad side. The other side of the little dad side.
it's a so a quick summary of the book. Kid grew up in Hawaii. His dad was a teacher. Hawaii, I think I might be wrong. But his dad was a teacher. Lived a pretty modest life. Like they couldn't really afford much. And then his best friend's dad was like kind of a baller. Like very nice guy. Taught him a lot. And he asked him one day, "What do you do?" And he's like, "I invest in real estate." And he's like, "Here's how I did it." And he learned from both of them. He learned from his rich dad and his poor dad. Like he learned the conservative stuff from his poor dad and how to be an investor from the rich dad, and he grew his life that way. So it's not like I mean, it wasn't crap. He wasn't crapping on his poor dad. His dad worked, but um, it was like eye opening for me. It's because I always thought I just had to make 4% more every year, and maybe by the time I retired, I'd make 100 grand a year at that point because I was in my 20s, and I'm like, I'll never make 100 grand a year. And now you need to make 100 grand a year to buy a house. Like the average home, which is $400,000, you need to make $107,000 for a family to buy that house now. So if I didn't make a move, I would never be able to afford a house now, right? That's the reality. This is America. Everything's going to get more expensive, and if you're making the same amount of money every year, you're losing money because uh, cost of living goes up every year. So, all right, Kim, I'm going to end the Zoom now. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions, and feel free to reach out to me if you ever have any more. Okay.
Okay, we'll do, and thank you.
Absolutely. See you next month.
Okay.